September 21st, Arizona. A moment the world wasn't prepared for. Over 100 million people tuned in, not through TV, not through Hollywood, but through new media, witnessing something no football game, no headline could ever capture. It wasn't just a memorial, it was history in motion. And at the center of it all was Erica Kirk, standing in the shadow of unimaginable loss, yet choosing forgiveness instead of vengeance. Even Elon Musk called it powerful, describing Charlie as a man of light in a world of darkness. But here's the question: why did legacy media try to ignore one of the most extraordinary cultural moments of our lifetime? Stay with me, because what you're about to see will change the way you think about faith, culture, and the future itself. The Charlie Kirk Memorial proved to be a historic event, not only for its overwhelming viewership but also for the powerful message it carried. Millions witnessed an extraordinary display of faith and resilience, a kind of spiritual awakening that hasn't been seen in decades. What made it even more striking was that the event reached over 100 million people entirely through new media platforms, bypassing traditional outlets altogether. Central to the memorial was Erica Kirk's moving speech, which left many in awe as she embodied grace and forgiveness in the face of tragedy. Held on September 21st in Arizona, the gathering was more than just a remembrance. It was a moment that redefined how faith, culture, and media intersect, leaving a mark on history and solidifying Turning Point USA's place in shaping cultural conversations. The Charlie Kirk Memorial was not only a cultural milestone but also a staggering media phenomenon, drawing in audiences across multiple platforms at unprecedented levels. Fox News' YouTube livestream alone reached 2.16 million views, while the Associated Press YouTube channel garnered 1.15 million. On Charlie Kirk's own accounts, the numbers soared even higher, with 3.3 million views on X and an impressive 6.62 million on YouTube, all tallied as of Sunday evening, with figures still climbing. These 4 streams alone added up to more than 13.2 million views, and when factoring in countless other live broadcasts, estimates easily surpassed 20 million. Attendance on the ground was equally historic, with over 200,000 people gathered across the main venue and overflow areas, according to the New York Post. Traditional television viewership contributed millions more, pushing totals into the tens of millions. While conservative estimates place the audience at 30 million, Turning Point USA asserts the memorial's reach was far greater, claiming over 100 million viewers worldwide, a figure supported by their production and streaming partners. The tribute to Charlie Kirk became a massive global moment, with overall streams easily surpassing 100 million views, as speaker after speaker shared the gospel with audiences worldwide. Remarkably, this happened without the involvement of legacy media, which was busy airing football games, reminding us that faith and truth can now reach millions directly through platforms like YouTube and X. Among those present was Elon Musk, who reflected on Charlie's life and legacy with heartfelt words. Musk described him as a man of ideas, someone who cherished open dialogue and respectful debate, a voice of peace who never needed to raise his tone to make an impact. Calling Charlie's death a senseless tragedy, Musk lamented the loss of a friend he had met many times and personally supported. The memorial also highlighted Erica Kirk's powerful message, a moving reminder of resilience in the face of unimaginable pain, choosing light over darkness, and refusing to allow tragedy to turn into despair. It was a moment of grief, but also one of grace, strength, and hope for all who watched. He was killed because his. Elon Musk's words carried weight at the tribute, describing Charlie Kirk as a man who shone light even while surrounded by darkness. Coming from Musk, a figure many now see as a frontrunner in the race toward artificial general intelligence, his reflections struck a deeper chord. As AI grows increasingly powerful, with predictions that by 2029 it may surpass the combined intelligence of humanity, the question of moral grounding becomes urgent. What matters most is ensuring that those shaping this technology understand the difference between right and wrong, good and evil. The speaker acknowledged past doubts about Musk, while also stressing that self-reflection is necessary for everyone, not just tech leaders. Still, the hope expressed was clear: that Musk, inspired by what he witnessed at the memorial and particularly by Erica Kirk's moving testimony, might seriously consider the role of God and morality in guiding the future. Because in a world racing toward transformative technology, it is not just intelligence we need, but wisdom, faith, and light to balance the darkness. Stories matter because they shape the way we see ourselves and the challenges we may one day face. When we follow a hero's journey, whether in film, television, or literature, we step into that hero's shoes, learning how to confront dragons, both literal and symbolic. The greater the hero's struggle, the deeper the fall into despair, the more powerful their rise becomes, pointing us towards something higher, even divine. That is why dismantling or diminishing our cultural heroes often feels like a betrayal. They serve as models for courage and virtue. As we enter an era defined by artificial intelligence, the hope is that our leaders understand this truth, that true greatness requires aspiring to the divine. This was powerfully displayed during the Turning Point USA Memorial for Charlie Kirk. What unfolded there was more than human. It carried a transcendent quality, a glimpse of grace that technology alone cannot replicate. And significantly, millions could witness it thanks to new media, something that would have been nearly impossible had this moment occurred a decade ago, when legacy media controlled what the world was allowed to see. We live in an era where technology and media allow moments of profound faith to be shared with the world, and because of platforms like X, especially after Elon Musk's acquisition, an estimated 100 million people may have witnessed Erica Kirk's extraordinary act of grace. In front of a hushed arena, she echoed the words of Christ on the cross, offering forgiveness to the one who had caused unimaginable pain. "Father, forgive them, for they know not what they do." The atmosphere shifted as thousands in attendance, and millions online, were moved to tears. It was as though countless people, watching from across the globe, prayed with her in that moment, asking God to grant her the strength she displayed. What unfolded was nothing short of miraculous. The ability to draw kindness and forgiveness out of the deepest sorrow, turning anguish into a testimony of faith. That this was seen by so many is itself historic, a shared spiritual experience amplified by technology. And while politics and culture wars often dominate headlines, what took place that night transcended all of it, leaving behind a legacy of light, grace, and hope that no gatekeeper in Hollywood or the media could contain. Although I try to avoid politics, what unfolded at the Charlie Kirk Memorial was far greater than politics. It was a profound display of philosophy, faith, and moral clarity. Erica Kirk's act of forgiveness stands as one of the most heroic gestures imaginable, a healing force in the face of evil. As we move into an age where humanity will create powerful technologies like AI and AGI, there is no greater lesson than witnessing the stark contrast between darkness and miraculous good. What millions saw that night was powerful, transformative, and deliberately ignored by legacy media. That is why it becomes our responsibility, as people of faith, as seekers of truth, and even as skeptics, to carry forward what we witnessed. We must replicate it in our stories, our movies, our shows, our games, and in the lessons we pass on to our children. Because stories matter. Entertainment matters. And technology, too, will matter in shaping the future. What we saw at that memorial is worthy of honor, of imitation, and of deep respect, a reminder that even in the shadow of tragedy, light can prevail. So let us commit ourselves to aiming higher, not just in the stories we tell, but also in the very way we live our lives each day. Stories are powerful, yes, but they only hold their true weight when they inspire us to action, when they become something more than words on a page or dialogue on a screen. They must become lived experiences, choices that we embody. Our lives are, in a sense, the greatest stories ever written, each moment another sentence, each decision another chapter. And if we are to write these stories well, then let us write them with purpose, integrity, and faith. As for me and my house, we will serve the Lord. That declaration, simple yet profound, is not just a motto. It is a compass, a guiding star in a world where values often seem negotiable and truth is treated as relative. To serve the Lord is to commit to light, to walk in humility, to recognize that grace is stronger than bitterness, and that forgiveness is greater than vengeance. It means striving to align with the divine even when the culture around us pulls toward the temporary, the shallow, and the self-serving. I know there are some who may not prefer when conversations like this move into spiritual or philosophical territory. Many would rather keep faith tucked away in private corners, far removed from the noise of politics, the debates of culture, or the everyday patterns of public life. To them, faith is something intensely personal, to be practiced quietly in prayer, in rituals, or in private meditation, not something to be laid bare before the eyes of the world. But what we witnessed through Charlie and Erica demands nothing less than reflection. It compels us to reconsider that very separation. This was not simply another moment in the endless churn of digital content. It wasn't just a broadcast that happened to capture attention. What unfolded was much deeper than trending headlines or viral videos. What we saw and heard carried a weight that refuses to be confined to entertainment or dismissed as mere spectacle. In fact, the very way it unfolded, streamed across new media platforms, shared millions of times, and watched by people from every walk of life, testifies to the reality that truth, when revealed in its purest form, transcends boundaries. It wasn't entertainment, though it reached millions. Entertainment distracts, entertains, and often evaporates the moment the screen goes dark. But this moment lingered. People found themselves returning to it, replaying it, and discussing it with friends and family long after the initial broadcast ended. That staying power tells us something important. This was not designed simply to amuse, but to awaken. It wasn't performance, though it commanded the attention of vast audiences. Performance usually implies an act, a crafted role played for applause or approval. Yet what unfolded through Erica's words and Charlie's legacy was not scripted in that sense. It wasn't about stagecraft. It was about heart, conviction, and lived reality. What people encountered was authenticity so raw that it broke through the cynicism many carry about public figures or organized movements. It had the texture of real life, not theater. It was something altogether different. It was truth revealed in real time. And that is a rare thing. We live in an age where truth often feels elusive, hidden beneath layers of curated images, sound bites, and narratives spun for profit or power. But in that moment, truth was not only spoken, it was embodied. It was not abstract philosophy, but living faith. We saw conviction tested and confirmed, not in theory, but in practice. Faith being lived out when the world was watching carries a special kind of power. It's one thing to speak about hope, forgiveness, or resilience in safe, private spaces. It is quite another to live those virtues before an audience that spans continents. What Erica did was not just give a speech, she bore witness. And in doing so, she reminded millions that faith is not meant to be sealed off from public life. It is precisely in the moments of crisis, grief, and trial that faith is most desperately needed, and most powerfully displayed. This is why the impact reached so far beyond the event itself. People were not just watching a memorial, they were experiencing a testimony that declared, even in tragedy, faith endures. Even when darkness falls, light can still shine. Even when voices of opposition try to silence a message, the truth has a way of amplifying itself louder than before. And so, while some may wish to relegate faith to the sidelines, to treat it as irrelevant to culture or too fragile for the public square, moments like this challenge that assumption. They show us that faith, when lived with courage and integrity, does not retreat into the private sphere. It rises to meet the challenges of the age. It speaks when silence would be easier. It comforts when despair seems overwhelming. And it points beyond human strength to something eternal. Perhaps that is what made the moment unforgettable. It wasn't just about honoring Charlie's life, though it did that beautifully. It wasn't simply about Erica's strength, though her courage was undeniable. It was about a larger truth breaking through the noise of our time, that faith, when genuine, is not fragile but unshakable. It can stand under scrutiny, endure loss, and inspire multitudes. In the end, what we witnessed was a reminder that public life and personal faith are not meant to be enemies. They are threads woven together, shaping how we understand ourselves, our communities, and our future. And if millions could pause, even for a few moments, to witness faith being lived out so openly, then perhaps that tells us something about the hunger that still exists in our world. A hunger not just for entertainment or distraction, but for meaning, for truth, for hope. That is why the moment matters. That is why we cannot simply file it away as another viral clip or fleeting headline. It demands reflection. It calls us to ask, what does it mean for us to live with that same kind of conviction? What would it look like if our faith was not hidden, but integrated into how we speak, act, and respond in the public spaces we inhabit every day? The answers may not be simple, but the example has been set. And it is now up to each of us to decide whether we will let faith remain confined, or whether we will dare, like Charlie and Erica, to let it shine before the watching world. In Erica's moment of unimaginable loss, what shone through was not despair but grace. In her ability to forgive, to extend kindness beyond the capacity of ordinary human strength, we saw an act that cannot be explained by logic alone. It was faith in its purest form, humanity at its highest, and an echo of Christ's own words on the cross. That is why it mattered. That is why it deserves to be remembered. And that is why we cannot brush it aside as just another story in a week filled with headlines. I want more of that in the world. And I believe many of you do too. The world has more than enough anger, division, and cynicism. What it lacks is the courage to forgive, the willingness to show mercy, and the humility to admit that there are truths greater than ourselves. When we see those truths lived out, It sparks something in us, a reminder that we were made for more than this world's fleeting struggles. It is light compared to darkness, the brilliance of the sun against a starless night. Darkness can only cover so much before the smallest flame pushes it back. What Erica demonstrated was not just a flame but a blazing light, bright enough to reach millions across the globe. And it reminded us that the light still wins, that good still has power over evil, that faith is still stronger than fear. So let us honor that moment, not just by admiring it but by carrying it forward into our own lives. Let us share it, teach it, and live it out in our families, in our communities, and in the choices we make each day. May we not allow it to fade into memory as just another viral clip, but instead treat it as a call to action, a challenge to live with the same grace, the same courage, the same devotion to God's truth. God bless the Kirks, for their testimony has touched millions. God bless each of you, that you may be strengthened to walk in the light and to rise above the shadows. And may God bless the United States of America and the world, as together we strive not only to build better technologies, stronger economies, or louder voices, but to build lives that reflect the divine. For in the end, that is what truly endures, the story of faith, hope, and love written on the hearts of all who choose to live for something greater than themselves.